Now, in the following video, notice the results of pursuing imitation peace.
Newly married life came with a lot of unexpected challenges. You dream about the way your marriage will go, but then the reality is quite different. All we ever did was argue, or we wouldn't speak to one another.
We never ever went to the elders. We just didn't want to bother them. We just felt, we needed to figure it out ourselves. We decided if the house sold, that we would separate.
The separation wasn't a good thing because in some respects it made things worse.
It did have an impact on the boys. They started acting out. They got into some trouble with the police one time.
And there was a loneliness because you've gotten married and now you don't have that and you're by yourself. And the same old routine went on where you're cooking and cleaning and doing laundry and working.
I felt sick to my stomach. I had a hard time getting up every morning and facing the world. At that point, I felt that I needed to have the elders help out a little bit. I did pray for Jehovah's help to direct me, and kept wondering why Jehovah wasn't really answering my prayers, but I kind of realize now that it was because we were separated.
Jehovah wasn't answering his prayers because he was separated. Evidence none given. We've been hearing from Daryl and Deborah Freisinger, who are appearing in a video segment in the final talk of the Friday morning. They're talking about the difficulties they had in their relationship. And the elephant in the room here is, while they're bemoaning separation or talking about how terrible separation was for them, they're not acknowledging that separation was literally the only alternative to being married. Again, when you're a Jehovah's Witness, there is no allowance for divorce unless there is adultery. Once you get married, even if it's a dysfunctional marriage, and clearly these two people, and it's going to be more and more obvious as this drags on, these two people weren't meant for each other. Even in a dysfunctional marriage, you have to stick it out. You have to spend the rest of your lives together. Separation is the only alternative that will allow you to stay in good standing in the congregation. If you get divorced without there being any adultery and you marry someone else, you risk judicial action. So here is the Shepherd, the Flock of God book. This is my personal copy. And in chapter 12, point 10, you have there a paragraph, adulterous marriage. If a divorced person remarries and he was not scripturally free to do so, in other words, if adultery and rejection by the innocent mate had not occurred, he has entered into an adulterous marriage. In Jehovah's eyes, he has married someone while still bound to another. Entering into such a marriage would call for judicial action. And judicial action means either reproof or disfellowshipping. So there are grave consequences for doing anything other than getting a separation or remaining in a dysfunctional marriage.
The expectations of the separation were not at all what I was thinking. I reflected on the marriage vows. One of the things I thought about was a sister in our congregation. She was married to an unbeliever, and then she learned the truth. And he was so violent. He would beat her. He would burn her books. He would burn her clothes. He did not allow her children to attend the meetings. And I thought about the problems that Daryl and I had, and I thought, well, Daryl's a kind person. He's never done that. And I thought, you know, this is something that we need to really work on. We need to really put forth the effort to start applying Bible principles to put Jehovah first in our life so that we can bring our marriage back into union with Jehovah. I realized that it wasn't what I wanted, it was what Jehovah wanted.
It wasn't what I wanted, it was what Jehovah wanted. Doesn't that sum it all up? Doesn't that sum up everything about this religion? It's not about what you want. It's not about what you need. It's about falling into lockstep with what's expected of you. And in this situation, Deborah Freisinger felt trapped. She felt like there was no other option. Jehovah wanted her to get the marriage back on track, to end the separation, to get back into what was a dysfunctional relationship, because there was apparently no other choice. And I found it chilling when she said,
one of the things I thought about was a sister in our congregation. She was married to an unbeliever, and then she learned the truth. And he was so violent. He would beat her. He would burn her books. He would burn her clothes.
that's the sort of situation a married Jehovah's Witness woman is expected to put up with. You don't hear that in this segment. You don't hear, by the way, if that were the situation, our sister should put up with a husband who is violent, a husband who beats her, a husband who burns her possessions. A Jehovah's Witness woman would have to put up with that or get a separation. She'd never be allowed to remarry, not without judicial action, because again, she would be considered to have entered an adulterous marriage. And you can only imagine how many toxic marriages have continued long past their sell-by date due to this horrendous policy.
There was just no other choice. Jehovah wasn't going to bless us unless we got back together.
When we got back together, our marriage was still a work in progress. You can't have a perfect marriage in this world, but you can sure make it better when you put Jehovah first.
We enjoyed feelings towards each other. I felt closer to Debbie. Debbie and I have been married now 48 years. Separation does not make anything better at all.
If you even have an inkling of love for one another, you want to work on that and you want to make it bloom so that Jehovah can bless it.
The blessings have been endless. Our children are all doing fantastic in the truth.
Jehovah said, taste and see that it is good, so we've got to do that.
Now, we really appreciated this couple sharing the experience with the brotherhood. He learned, you know, they're always arguing, and that's all they did was argue. It affected their children. They decided to separate. Finally have peace. I don't have to be around her, or I don't have to be around him. But then he realized his relationship with Jehovah was being interfered with here, and he went to the elders. His prayers were affected, things he noticed. He was honest about that. And our precious sister was so nice to honestly explain. She said what she learned was, this is not about me. It's about Jehovah. When you finally come to that realization, Jehovah will strengthen you to enjoy peace with your marriage partner.
that was the best part for Tony, wasn't it? That was the part that he enjoyed most. The part where Deborah said, it's not about me, it's about Jehovah. That's the sort of follower he wants as a governing body member. Someone who puts their own needs and their own well-being secondary to what's required of them by the religion. Just sickening, all of it. And I found particularly distasteful the part where they said,
Separation does not make anything better at all.
If you even have an inkling of love for one another, you want to work on that and you want to make it bloom.
don't get me wrong, they seem like lovely people. I'm sure if I went round for a coffee with Daryl and Deborah, well, obviously they'd be shunning me because I'm an apostate, but let's say they didn't know I'm an apostate. I could imagine going round for a coffee and us getting on really well because they seem like lovely, lovely people. But who the hell do they think they are to be telling thousands of couples in a convention video what to do in their relationships? Just because a certain course of action has worked out well for them, and who's to say it really has worked out for them? Because the whole message here seems to be, it may not be perfect, but it'll do. That seems to be the message here. I'm not convinced that these two people are right for each other, even after, 48 years or whatever it was. Let's say, just for argument's sake, that they are now blissfully happy, that they've overcome all of their differences, and they're now in this wonderful state of marital bliss. That still doesn't put them in any position to be advising anyone in any marriage that, separation does not make anything better, and if you even have an inkling of love for one another, you want to work on that. Well, great. That's worked for you. Maybe. We don't know. But just because that's your experience, frankly, how dare you suggest that this will be the experience of every married couple who watches your story?